Citibank says it's for their house account. JP Morgan says it's for a client. Who's got that kind of metal?
Right.
Which clients want to take in this kind of volume?
Who's got that kind of money? Yeah.
Yes. And so I just want you to understand that these banks never cannibalized each other. It seems like maybe, and they were either forced or willing to deliver to JP Morgan and Citibank. And the best way to say that is the smartest, best connected institutions in the silver market now want to hold the metal themselves right now rather than take the paper promises into the future. This has never happened to this degree. USA Tether will be the primary beneficiary of this. Tether already has over $14 billion in gold, more gold than anyone in the world except central banks. They're going to continue to buy gold and silver, which continues to devalue the dollar, continues to push these assets higher. These are all part and parcel, I think, of what they're trying to ultimately do. You're right. And you are beginning to see these kind of vehicles where it's not just the normal market dynamics. I think you can really see, and again, ask yourself, who's bringing in all this metal? As I mentioned, in December, there were 3.706 million ounces of gold that were delivered in December, plus 64.730 million troy ounces of silver. 64.730 million troy ounces of silver issued. But in the first 3 days of this new January contract, first 3 days, we've seen 4,249 gold contracts, 3,596 silver contracts. That's 424,900 ounces of gold, 17,980 ounces of silver come into COMEX in 3 days.
Wait. Now, 3 days of January is bigger for gold than the entire month of September? Did I take my notes right?
That was December. Okay. In December, there were 3.706 million troy ounces of gold in the whole month of December. In the first 3 delivery days of
January,
there was 424,900 ounces of gold.
Oh, okay.
So not yet.
Not yet.
And 18 million ounces of silver in 3 days. Now ask yourself, if a mint box of silver, which is 500 ounces, weighs 42 pounds, who's bringing in 18 million ounces of silver in 3 days?
Right.
But this is every single month. And to me, the biggest crime in all of this is, where is this moron Jim Cramer, and where are all these talking heads who are so intellectual and so invested in helping the public understand what's happening? Nobody is talking about this.
Andy Schectman says silver hasn't peaked, it's just beginning. Wall Street banks are taking record physical delivery, not paper. Margin hikes flushed weak hands while big players accumulated. With China restricting exports and silver now a critical mineral, he sees 100 to 200 silver ahead. Thanks for watching. Give a thumbs up and subscribe to Fine Metals for the latest insights.
Why? This is the only question. Why have 8 banks in the West, 5 in the United States, 2 or 3 in Europe, and maybe 1 in Canada? Why have they controlled the largest concentrated short position of any of the 1,000 commodities traded on COMEX ever in the history of the COMEX? Why have these banks done this? Why? It's a tiny little market. The question isn't that they did it, it's why have they done it in silver? Unlike any other market traded in commodities, the largest concentrated short position in any commodity ever traded in the history of the COMEX has been in silver. The Western banks have had a vested interest in stepping on the price. It has never been allowed to find real price discovery. The nations in the global South understand this. That's why they have, the name of my podcast, Little by Little. They're smart. Everyone's, well, why don't they just buy it all? Because you cut off your nose immediately to spite your face and the whole thing blows up. But if you do it quietly, little by little by little by little, stand for delivery all over the world. Don't tell anyone about it. You're China. You go to Latin America and buy all the doré and the concentrate. Don't tell anybody. You continue to do this and doing it in the Globex market, which gives you access to the COMEX through sovereign wealth funds, through proxy banks. So it's not the PBOC doing it. If the People's Liberation Army accumulates it through a fund, that's not reported. All of these things are being done covertly and quietly, and it's finally starting to come to the surface. And you get the US say, well, it's a strategic mineral. And China's saying, that's right. And we're not going to export any anymore through massive restrictions. Some will come out, but not much. What we are seeing is, I believe, is a transformation back to, they say history doesn't repeat, but it sure rhymes. Gold and silver have been money and part of the monetary ecosystem for 6,000 years. It's coming back into play. And I think that when you look at silver from that perspective, the price doesn't matter today, but the big money that's involved in it, they're going to do everything they can to make you think, why am I holding this? It's too scary. It's over. The top is in. The mainstream media will do that. They've done it the whole way, and they've never been right. If silver is a strategic metal, if they get their hands on it, it ain't coming back. And you could say the same thing about Gaddafi, about Saddam Hussein. And what about the 12 billion in gold the Ukraine sold to fund the war? Where'd that go? You could say that's all perhaps coming back to the US for strategic purposes. Yeah. And, when Trump starts talking about the Monroe Doctrine, I think he's saying it's not just, this isn't like a pushback to the BRICS in my mind. Venezuela had applied to the BRICS. It's not just about them. He came out, there's an article in Axios that says he just publicly issued warnings to governments of Mexico, Cuba, and Colombia.
That these it was pretty thinly veiled in his press conference that they shouldn't rest easy. Yeah.
But I mean, I think that if they're going to come in and take this stuff, it's not going into the open market. It's going into the U.S. coffers, because I do think that is part of national security. Certainly silver is. And if Judy Shelton, who you and I have talked about a million times, is right, well, that's part and parcel of what Tether is doing to push the price up. You need lots of gold to back the treasuries. Well, that would make sense to me. It ain't going out into the marketplace. It's going to back a new system, I believe, a new monetary system. So yes, it will have impact in terms of how it would benefit the country that holds it. But I don't think that's going to be something that will be dumped onto the COMEX market or onto the LBMA for anyone who wants to buy it. No, it's just going to strengthen the position behind the scenes. Well, what the CME did is what they always do by raising margins on December 31st by 30%, and a few weeks earlier by 10 or 15%. It flushes out the weak hands who come in on margin, who want to capitalize on a silver market that's moving parabolic. Now, this is easy pickings for the big banks. Forget about the major trend. It has nothing to do with the trend. This is I'm going to scalp you because you think you're smarter than the market is and you're not big enough to play in this sandbox. So here's what we do. All of you who went on margin to buy more silver at leveraged silver in order to make money, we're jacking up the fee, the margin that you have to have within your account. And so we're going to jack it up to a level by where it's going to put some severe pain on your pocketbook. And if you don't pay that margin, if you don't do that right away, why then you are going to have your position liquidated, which happened. And let me see how many. The first time they did it, the amount of, so we saw 13,430 contracts sold in 15 minutes. That was the first one on December 12th.
Wow.
The 26th, they followed up with the second increase. Sorry, I thought it was the December 26th, day after Christmas. And they rose the margin up to $25,000, a $3,000 increase. But you saw huge, in other words, you have to have $25,000 to own a contract in your margin account. And so what happened was all of these contracts got liquidated. Well, who do you think came in there and bought it all? Well, the banks just come in and buy it all, scoop it up on the cheap. It's called shaking the bushes. And it was done magnificently. You could argue that this was textbook. The speculators who come late, who think they're smart, who come in unleveraged, the big houses just shake the bushes real quick, and out comes all of the silver that they get to pick up on the cheap. I don't think it's the top at all. I look instead at one of the biggest anomalies that anyone has ever seen. Let's talk about Christmas. The total COMEX delivery notices as of December 26th, or in fact, the end of December, 62,875,000 ounces, record high for December of all time. Let's be pragmatic. And I do have a hard stop in about 7 or 8 minutes.
We'll get you out.
So if we took gold right now at $4,330 and we divided by 42, which is pretty much the average man's price of the last 100 years, you're at what are you at? 43.32 divided by 42. You're at $103. What's interesting is if you take the 45-year cup and handle, the top in 1980 is 45, the bottom is around 4. That's $46 difference. Then you get up to 2011 where it's the top again. So, and then it comes down to the handle, and when it breaks through, you take the top minus the bottom, that's 50 minus 4, 46, add it to the top, that's $96. Pretty darn close to where that number is. I would not be surprised one bit to see Keith Neumeyer's triple-digit silver prediction years ago play out. And quite frankly, that would just be the average ratio between the two for the last 100+ years. It could go much higher than that. If you realize it's coming out of the ground at 7-1, I'm not saying we're going to get to 7-1, but even take 20-1. Well, 20-1 right now at $4,332 would be $216. Could silver hit $200? Yes. Will it? Don't know. That's a lofty guess, but I think $100 silver is not foolish at all. I mean, at all. Not only is it the average ratio of the last 200 years, roughly 150 years, but it would still be about 6 times higher than it's coming out of the ground at.
If somebody they had a certain amount of money, $5,000, $10,000, and they wanted to put it in either gold or silver, which would you encourage them to put it in right now?
100% silver. 100%. Yeah. Now, if someone had $10 million, it wouldn't be the same thing, because ultimately you want to continue to buy gold. Ultimately, when the music stops, it's about gold, in my opinion. But the value and the leverage and just the flat out, in my mind, best value I've ever seen, most undervalued commodity in the world is still silver. When the music stops, gold's going to be massively reintegrated into the system, and we're not getting any younger. So again, if this is $1,600, whatever, silver, but 90,000 gold, as you get older, moving, schlepping, storing, logistics with silver can become an issue. So I think you use that ratio. Now, when you and I started talking, the ratio was 85-1. Now it's in the 50s. It's averaged roughly 42-1 since the Industrial Revolution. Coming out of the ground at 6-1. You can see this trend disappearing in nature. Only 20% comes from silver miners, the rest byproduct. The trend is for a declining ratio. And then when that ratio gets anywhere 40 or under, you're supposed to switch to gold. So there will come a time to do that. Right now, silver, but could very shortly be gold. But value-wise, for 10 grand, you're just way better off having the leverage of silver versus 2.5 ounces of gold.
Okay. I'm smiling there, Andy, because somebody just put Andy Schectman for president 2028. So just know you got a lot of goodwill amongst the following.
Thank you. I appreciate that, you guys. I try hard. I do the best I can. Hey, saying these things, putting yourself out on a limb in front of the world is not as easy as you might think.
No, and you take a lot of things.
You want to be measured about it, for sure. I don't want to be. One other thing, and I've told you this before too, Adam. When I think it's time to sell, I swear to you, on the Bible, I swear to you that I will tell the world when I think it's time to sell. But I don't think we're anywhere near that yet. But there will come a time to trade your silver to gold, and I'll be the first one to tell you when it's time.